And the scary thing about that is that sometimes people will disappoint you, and sometimes people will not show up. And it immediately kicked in all of this crazy voice. Just as powerful as our negative voices can be, like, so can our positive voices, right? I have learned to have trust that no matter how big the grief or the pain, I'm going to be okay. If you are using fear as your motivation, it's going to dry up. It's so great to just tell yourself, oh my God, things are so fucking good. I really feel like these are the lessons that have made me feel so confident and happy right now. So today is my 32nd birthday. And in honor of my 32nd birthday, I wanted to make a podcast episode about all of the things that I've learned this year that I think have contributed to making me the happiest that I have felt in a really long time. By the time this episode goes live, it's going live on my birthday, which is part of what, that felt very serendipitous to have a podcast episode go live on the 25th, right around when I'm first starting to kick off the podcast weekly again, which I'm only able to do really because I've learned some of these lessons and have changed the way I think about my work and my process and the things I want to do. And my birthday historically has been kind of hard for me. And because it's been hard, it's something, sometimes I like gloss over the birthday and I want to celebrate it in like a really low key way, almost as if to just get through it. And I'm still kind of having a low key birthday in many ways. I don't do a big birthday party. I'm celebrating with it's very inner circle, and I don't know. I'm doing my birthday the way that I want to do it, but I don't want to gloss past this year and the marking of moving into my next year, because this has been, though it's been one of the most challenging years of my adult life, 31, it's gotten me to this point where a week before my 32nd birthday, I feel so happy. And I have so much trust in what's ahead. And I did not feel this way last year. Like a week before my 31st birthday, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, maybe you listened to my birthday episode last year. If you've been a part of our community, you know this. I've talked openly about it. I was in a really dark place. I had fallen into depression again, which is something that has happened to me throughout my life. I've dealt with since I was a little kid. Was dealing with grief. It was maybe the first or second birthday that my grandma wouldn't be calling me. And I had been kind of pushing away that emotions about that for a long time. There were a variety of external situations that were happening in my life that triggered a lot of this depression and grief and yada yada. And I just was in a fucking dark hole. I was in a dark hole. And couple that with a person who has always kind of felt a little iffy about her birthday. My birthday itself, when it hit last year, was another kind of, it pushed me down further. And I think I anticipated that ahead of the birthday. And it was just, I wasn't feeling like myself. And I feel so far from that now. And the amazing thing is, like, nothing really has changed. Like, a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with then that made me sad and made me feel destabilized, nothing's really changed. I'm still dealing with a lot of those same problems. And it's not like I've gotten any big accolades. I haven't published a book, or I haven't gotten 1 million followers, or I haven't made tons of money. Like, there haven't, some of those things that I thought a year ago that would make me feel happy, those things haven't happened. And yet I have still found happiness and a greater sense of peace and trust inside myself. And I wanted to sit down and think about, like, what the hell are those lessons? And I want to share them with you. Because the reason I feel happier now is not by fucking coincidence. It's through hard work and practice. And I think that if I can continue to live my life through the lens of some of these ideas that I'm going to share with you, I think that my 30s, in the next 8 years of my 30s, will be the best decade yet. And I was debating putting on makeup for this episode, but I just figured that I was going to cry. So I am wearing a little bit of blush, no mascara, because the tears might flow. But if you've been listening for a while, you know sometimes that I just cry through things. So with that, it's my 32nd birthday. I'm recording this obviously a couple days before But hey, happy birthday, bitch. Happy birthday. I love you and I'm so proud of you. So let's share these lessons with everyone and really, share them. I'm sharing them with you, but I'm also sharing them with myself because these are important things to reiterate. All right, let's get into it. So the first lesson that's been huge for me this year is about how the process is everything. The process is everything. I forgot that. I forgot how important enjoying the process is. And when I say the process, we can apply this to all sorts of things. The process of your work, the process of your creative work, the process of getting to know somebody who you're in a new relationship with, the process of getting engaged. Whatever it is, it's really important that you enjoy the time that you're spending working towards an outcome. For a long time, I got really attached to the outcomes of what it is I was working towards, and I completely forgot about having fun in the process. And I've realized that the process is so important because it is the only thing we can control. I'm really bringing it back to my kind of creative output, which is really important. My creativity and my creative expression is a really important part of my life. It's one of the great loves of my life, and being creative and making things is one of the things that makes me feel most alive, probably right next to like being in love. And I think about being in love as with my husband, Brian, but also like expressing love to friends and people in my life. But the process is the only thing we have control over. I have no control over whether my work succeeds or fails. I have no control over whether people hate it or love it. I have no control over any of that. And what I found is that when I enjoy the process and when I've really gotten something out of the process of making it, I'm having fun, I'm listening to myself, I'm being intuitive, I'm less attached to whatever that outcome is. But if I'm not enjoying the process, if I haven't gotten anything out of the process except for a hassle, then I'm very fucking attached to the outcome. And there have been times when I've succeeded, when I've gotten positive rewards from things that I wasn't that attached to the process. Sometimes, right, there are these magical flukes, and sometimes you don't work that hard on something or you're not invested and it works. And that's great, but it's not a good habit to get into because I've also seen what happens when I'm not attached to the process. In fact, I hated the process and then I fail, or then somebody criticizes it, or then, whatever bad outcome. And failure feels a lot worse when you didn't even enjoy what you were trying to make. If you're only attached to the outcome, if you're not enjoying spending time with this person really, but you think that they'd make a good life partner, or you're not really enjoying spending time with this friend, but you're desperate for a best friend, so you're going to keep doing it. Whatever ends up happening, if it doesn't work out according to your plan, which it probably won't, honestly, if you're only doing it for an outcome, I don't know, the pain feels so much worse, and it's such a more gnawing and toxic type of disappointment, I think. Whereas I'm experiencing failure all of the time, but when I've really tried to put the love of the process at the front and center, it doesn't hurt as bad, or I don't take it as personally because I've already gotten something wonderful from the making of it. The process really is everything. And I've noticed anecdotally that as I've prioritized the process, things in my life do seem to be kind of working better. Things seem to be clicking. And I can't deny that I think it's because I'm having fun. And I'm making sure that fun is at the center of the process. Another thing I've learned is that I have my own unique way of getting things done, and so do you. Whenever we're trying something new, I think we try to model the way we should do it based on the way someone else does it. And I think it's taken me a really long time to accept that my brain, and understand that my brain works differently. And I actually work best with sprints of really intense focused work followed by periods of rest. I don't do well with keeping a steady pace every day. I get bored or I get burned out, right? If I'm not doing enough, I'm going to get fucking bored. I like to feel busy and to feel really intensely focused on something to get in the world of whatever it is I'm making. But I can't stay that way for too long, otherwise I burn out. So I work differently than other people who do what I do. Maybe some people work like me, but others don't. And for a while, I was so desperate to like find my version of success. Again, this all comes back to trying to enjoy the process and figure out your process. I was so desperate to figure it out that I was just trying to be like other people. Someone told me once the best advice they got for growing their YouTube channel was to only focus on one thing. And that's worked really well for them in addition to their incredible talent, right? This is one of the most talented people that I know. When I try to do that, I feel so stuck. When I try to focus on only one thing, I feel so stuck. I feel so stuck. And when I feel stuck, I don't feel creative. And maybe there are some things I can learn from those types of focus, but maybe not. Maybe actually all I need to learn is how I work best. I'm going to try to design my life around that. And I think that anytime you find yourself trying to copy somebody else's way of doing things and then feeling frustrated that it doesn't work for you, instead of beating yourself up, instead of saying that you're not as talented as them or not as smart as them or not as good at them for not being able to do it, consider that you don't need to do it their way and that you're not the same person and that there's actually a better way for you to do things based on the way your brain works and the way you like to live and the way you like to work. And it's on you to figure that out. The next lesson has to do with gratitude. And practicing gratitude is always something that's felt a little bit like elusive, a little bit kind of woo-woo to me. But a way that I've been trying to really practice it is like, I love to laugh. Who doesn't love to laugh? But laughing is just one of those experiences that takes me so out of my body. So what I've been trying to do is whenever I find myself in a moment when I'm really laughing, I try to be like, whoa, I'm laughing right now. How good does this feel? How lucky am I? How incredible is my life? I've been trying to practice that, and I've been doing that over the last several months. And it's not every time, right? Sometimes you're so in the moment that you don't want to zoom out. But it happened the other night. Brian and I were upstairs in bed, and we were just like hysterically laughing about something. I don't remember what it was, but we were just laughing, and we were laying there and hysterical. And I just made sure to think to myself for one brief moment, how lucky am I? I'm so fucking lucky. I have the best life. Things are so wonderful. And is that true in totality? Do I have the best life? I think I have a pretty good life. Are things perfect? No. But in that moment of like sheer unbridled joy, it's so great to just tell yourself, oh my God, things are so fucking good. Things are so good in this moment right now. Because even if things aren't good at large in your life, you could be dealing with tons of shit. That moment of laughter is doing something really powerful for you. That moment of laughter is really beautiful and deserves to be pulled out of the larger picture for just like the incredible moment that it is. So notice it. That's one small way that you can start practicing gratitude. And the more I've done that, the more I've brought like that specific gratitude practice into my life, gratitude for laughter, I think the happier I've been. And I think genuinely the more grateful I felt. It's been easier for me to notice when things are going my way. So yeah, notice the laughter. Another lesson I've learned at 32 is to let your friends love you. And to do that, you have to open up to them. I think I've always thought of myself as a very open, vulnerable, authentic person, and I am those things. But there are also ways that I have been closed off to accepting help. And it's taken some really special friends and some people in my life really challenging me to notice that I do this, to like ask for help and to let people love you. And the scary thing about that is that sometimes people will disappoint you and sometimes people will not show up when you ask for it. And that's fucking scary. And I think for a long time, one of the reasons that I wasn't opening up to people in my life about some of the grief that I was carrying or just some of the stuff that was going on was because I was scared they were going to say the wrong thing. I was scared because I've seen what happens before when friends can't be there for you during your hard time. I've lost friends that way when I was younger. Back in middle school was sort of the first time that happened to me, and then again in college. And it's almost like I wanted to protect myself and maybe even protect my friends from us having to experience that tension. And I'm like, I'm not even going to go there with them because I don't trust that it'll work. I've seen evidence before of how friends can't handle my pain, and therefore I'm never going to bring my pain up. But all that really did was that really hurt me over time. And I don't know if it hurt my friendships necessarily, but it's been really amazing to accept love from my friends. And I think I noticed this originally, like back last year when I was really struggling, I was very comfortable when people would ask me, how are you? I'd say, oh, I'm actually having a hard time. I've been, dealing with depression recently. I would be very comfortable saying things sort of flat out like that. That doesn't feel that vulnerable to me. And I thought that the fact that I was willing to say that meant that I was very open. And maybe in some ways it did, but it was much harder for me to really let people in my sadness. Like, it was harder for me to cry to a friend, to cry to anyone. It was hard for me even to sometimes to cry around Brian. And a big breakthrough for me, though, was once I started saying to people that I love and trust that I need a little bit of help. Can we talk? And I'll never forget, like, my friend Matt, who has been on the podcast and I've talked about before, my friend who lives in Chicago, like ahead of my birthday last year, we hadn't spoken in a while because I was having a hard time and I had been isolating myself a little bit. And I was sort of feeling anxious because I knew he was going to call me. And I knew he was going to call me. And I knew then that it was going to make me face the fact that we hadn't talked in a long time. And when we talked, he called me a few days before my birthday, which I think is a fabulous thing to do, by the way, call people before their birthday, because the birthdays can always be not the best day to actually have good catch-ups. And I just sobbed. I just cried and cried and cried, and he listened, and it reconnected us. It made us closer. And I think actually maybe that phone call was sort of the beginning of me allowing people in my life to love me and show up for me. And since then, I think I've done a better job of asking for help, asking my siblings for help, being clear and working with Brian, for example, on the best ways to help me. Because something in relationships we learn is two different people. Like, Brian and I like to receive help in different ways. What helps Brian when he's feeling stressed and overwhelmed, the things that he does to help himself, are not necessarily the same things that help me. And I think part of letting people love you is by being really open about what you need and what you don't need. And you got to let people in. The way to have a life full of love and abundance and richness is to be vulnerable with people and to ask for help and to let them help you, to let them get it wrong too. The people I mentioned this on a podcast the other week, we have to give people we love the grace to get it wrong sometimes. They've earned that right by being there for us, and we trust them, and therefore it's okay if they don't get it right all the time. The fact that I was holding people to they weren't even high expectations. They were just I was assuming they were going to fail before they ever even tried, and that was becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I've learned how important it is to let people be there for you. And now, when I start to go through something hard, I call someone. And as I've started to ask for help more, I know who the people in my life are for different things. And that's helped me so much. That's helped me so much this year. And I want to keep doing it. I want to keep asking for help and letting the love in, because there's so much of it when you open your arms to it. Another lesson I've learned is that the outcome of my work is not the most important thing in my life. I differentiate that from the creative process. I hesitate to say work is not the most important thing of my life, because work for me, I'm so lucky that creativity and writing and making things has become my career and has become my job. And the creative process is one of the most important things in my life. It's part of what makes me me and what makes me feel like I have purpose. But the outcome of it is not the most important thing in my life. And I think it's still hard for me to sometimes believe that. But my obsession with my outcomes was eroding a lot of the beautiful things in my life. It was making its way into my relationship, where all I could talk about was work. There's a real difference in how someone talks about their work. I was for a while talking about my work at home in this obsessive way that was very anxiety ridden and was very focused on what I thought was going to make me happy. It's a totally different tone when I'm talking about my work in a playful, fun way. And that's not to say that I sometimes won't be in seasons where I am really focused on outcome, because I will. I am an outcome driven person, and I think it'll be interesting to try to find the balance of a healthy focus on outcomes. What does that look like in my life? And I think I'm dipping my toes in there to figure out what it feels like for me. But the outcome, the outcomes of our efforts is not the most important thing in our life. I think our relationships are, and the things that feed us are, and the product, the outcome is never going to be the thing that truly feeds you. And I feel like this year I've come back to really like relishing in the joy of my relationships and my experiences. And I hope that I can continue doing that. Another lesson, and this one is also creativity focused, forgive me, creativity is obviously a huge part of my life. And as I look at these lessons, I'm seeing that more clearly. But another lesson is that you are not going to find your voice until you start making things. And I know that's really hard to hear for everybody who has dreams and ambitions and is really in their head about what they think their potential is and what they think their voice is. You don't know what your voice is until you start making things. I'm still figuring out what my voice is. In every new medium and in every new thing you try, you're not going to find your unique, special way of doing it, of making a mark, until you start making things and putting them out there. I think making things in private and doing things in private is fine and is important and can be a good way to start. But I don't know. I do think we learn more by putting our stuff out in the world instead of hiding behind whatever it is that comforts us. And sometimes privacy is a thing that comforts us. Anonymity comforts us. But I think that you really will unlock your talent, whatever your talent is, when you start practicing, when you just start getting those at-bats. And it's annoying. Like even with this podcast, I'm definitely trying to figure out what my style is, what I want it all to look like, what I want to feel like. And the annoying fucking reality is that I'm not going to figure that out until I start doing it. And listen, there's lots of ways to be successful. Some people don't ever try to find their voice. They try to be exactly what everybody else is doing. And that can be successful. Copying things and doing best practice can be very lucrative. But that's not aligned with the way I want to live and what I want to make. Right? I'm very process driven. I want to do things my way. I want to live and create authentically. And guess what? You can't make something authentic that's true to you the first time you make it. You have no idea what you're meant to do. You have to find that. And you find that by making things and by trying and by experimenting. And I didn't experiment for a while because I thought that I needed to do it one way. And fuck that. I'm going to find my voice and I'm going to figure it out by trying and by making mistakes and by putting things out there and by trying again. And that's how you're going to find your voice too. You're going to find your voice by practicing. So get fucking started. This next lesson is a little bit different, and it's to stop shopping for the person you want to be or think you are and shop for the person you actually are. I realized this, I was scrolling on Instagram and like kind of getting sucked into all of these different fashion girlies and feeling really bad about myself for the way I dress and feeling really like, oh, I want to wear that type of thing. But I don't actually want to wear that type of thing. In your head sometimes, like when we're consuming so much content about lifestyle and fashion and beauty, we kind of forget who we are. You get like almost transported into this like la digital social media sphere where you forget completely about your own individuality and like your own actual life. And I think that can lead to some really impulsive fashion choices. And it's not even fashion choices, but really impulsive spending. And you don't need more things. I'm really proud, actually, of my spending and how I have cut back on buying things over the last several years. There have been some like specific changes I've made in my life around how I spend and buy clothes and shopping. Like, I love shopping, you guys. I love shopping. Shopping and clothing was one of my first loves. My grandma had this incredible, incredible fashion sense. And you know, I wear many of her things. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see when I post when I'm in like one of her dresses. Or she had the most, you know, I fell in love through clothes through her. And like our favorite store was the Ralph Lauren store in Manhattan. And if you ever like been uptown, there's a whole street on Madison Ave. Like they own the whole fucking street. And we'd go in the stores, and one of them, it's like the Black Label, one of the really fanciest brands. I mean, these things are so expensive, but we'd go in and we would love just window shopping. And she was such a great sale shopper. I mean, I try never to buy things full price because of what I've learned from her. One of the signs to me that she was really starting to not be well, actually, was because her fashion sense started to change. And the things that she started to say she liked were never things that she would have liked. That's a sidebar. But to bring it back to fashion, like I love fashion and spending, but it can become it's so easy to feel like you need more and you need that sweater. And if I buy this, then I'm going to be happy. That's what it comes down to, right? Our brain might not be making it, saying it in such simple terms, but we think that that purchase is going to make us feel better. And sometimes it feels good right away. But unless I've really thought long about a purchase and I know that it fits in my wardrobe and I know that it serves a function, it's filling a gap, I regret most purchases. Or I used to regret most purchases. Now I'm much more thoughtful when I buy something. I think it starts with I think about what I need and what I'm lacking, and then I go start looking for something to fill that need rather than scrolling and being like, oh, I want to look like her, so I'm going to get this type of thing. I want to look more like me. And maybe that's what the lesson is stop spending until you have figured out or have begun the process of thinking about what you want to look like and how you want to express yourself through clothing. Not what you want to look like in terms of the things we can't change, but how do you want to express yourself? What types of outfits, what types of clothes, what types of accessories really feel like you? And don't buy anything until you start engaging in those questions. Another lesson I've learned this year is that what you see as failure right now is actually an opportunity. Seeing failure as opportunity is one of those cliche phrases that has always been hard for me to wrap my mind around. But one way that I've been practicing that this year that's been helpful is to picture yourself. I want you to try to zoom out and imagine yourself looking at your life. Now look at this specific moment of your life. So I could say that I'm a failure because for the last year, I haven't had many external markers of growth and success. Okay. I've been trying to figure it out and I haven't found my thing and whatever. That's one thing that you could say. But if I zoom out and I look at my long, God willing life and all of and what I'm working, if I zoom out, how do I want to say this? If I zoom out this little moment at 31, 32 years old where I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to do and how I want my creative career to look like. And I wouldn't call this a failure. I would call this damn, look at how sweet and precious and smart and brave she was figuring it out without doing what I'm doing right now, becoming more comfortable with failure. I will never get to the place I'm meant to go. I will never get there unless I'm doing this. And you will never get where you want to go unless you start failing too. It's not going to happen. Life doesn't happen that way. You're not going to get what you want unless you start trying, unless you start practicing. And of course, I don't want to get too shamey and pick yourself up by the bootstraps, get out. I don't want to do that because there are so many reasons why we can be stuck. And a lot of those circumstances are out of our control sometimes. Chronic illness, mental health, financial inequities. There are so many reasons. And I also firmly believe that we always have a role to play in our circumstances. We can always find a role we play because I think happiness is about finding our agency, even in situations where we feel like we've been completely robbed of it or where we have none. That's the difference between people who I don't want to create a binary between people. So I'm not even going to say that because I don't actually believe that, but I don't know. I think that we can always find something where we can control, one positive, healthy way to find control in our life. And the work you're doing now, right? The work you do now to start failing and to start taking little baby steps towards your dream. You 20 years from now would never call this moment a failure. You would never call this moment a failure. When I look back at my life and my career in my 20s, I was a teacher. I worked for Ariana Huffington in a media startup and had lots of crazy fucking experiences there. I worked for another company for a year. And in those 8 years, I thought I was going to do so many different types of things. And I did get to do so many different types of things. And I don't look at any of those experiences as a failure. I look at them all as getting me to where I am right now. All of those experiences, I see very clearly how they led me to this moment, building Hello Haze, which is, I'm building it, right? I'm in the middle of building it. No wonder it doesn't feel No wonder it doesn't feel perfect all of the time. I'm in the middle of building it, right? We're building the plane while flying it. Anyway, I'm rambling now, but what I'm trying to say is the story we tell ourselves about what we're going through right now matters. And one way to rewrite that story is to picture yourself in the future. What do you think that you would say about this moment? What's a positive way? What's a way to tell this story that highlights your bravery and your courage? This isn't failure. This is you in the middle of finding your opportunity. Another lesson I've learned is that how I feel matters and how I talk to myself matters. And sometimes I need to pay more attention to how I feel in a situation rather than obsessing about how somebody else is perceiving me. And I'll give you a really specific example on this one, which makes me feel a little, I hope I don't have the vulnerability hangover or feel like this was too much information or whatever. I might, but I'm going to share it anyway because it's the best example that I can think of. I didn't make that much money last year, and I have lawyers who work on commission. And they're really like kind of powerful, like LA, big fancy lawyers. And I feel really lucky to get to work with them. And when I signed with them a little over a year ago, it was right at the beginning of Hello Haze. Things were sort of on like a really steep uphill. It felt like I was at the bottom of a mountain looking up, but like the roller coaster was sort of picking up the pace. And I hadn't yet gone through a bunch of the things that set me off that kind of triggered the depression again. And it was just, I was in a different place in my life. I was in a different place in my life. And I signed with them, and I have felt really self-conscious that I haven't made them a lot of money. Now, money is a whole complicated thing that I am doing lots of work to like, whatever. There's a lot of shame around money. I think we all know that. But I recently negotiated a brand deal for myself, and I shouldn't, knock on wood, I haven't signed it yet, but I'm really excited about that. It's something I wasn't really prioritizing, and I'm not gonna like really prioritize it. I don't see brand deals as like, here I go again. Why do I have my own issues around brand deals and making money off of my work? I really need to work on that. Anyway, this brand deal came in, and I emailed the contract to them to review. And it immediately kicked in all of this crazy voice about, are they going to be annoyed that I'm emailing them about a small contract? The contract is small. It's significant for me, but it's not significant for them. And I'm like doing the math. What's 5% of this? Are they going to be annoyed? Is this not worth their time? Are they going to wonder why I haven't emailed them in so long? And they didn't get back to me right away. And it wasn't that long. But I found myself like really stressing around when am I allowed to follow up? When am I allowed? All sorts of bullshit thinking that nobody is putting in my head except for me. And I ended up asking for help. I texted a friend of mine who is a lawyer, and I'm like, I think I texted him, and I'm like, I'm having a really insecure moment. I labeled that. I'm feeling really insecure right now. Can you help me and confirm for me that what I'm feeling is okay, that I'm not asking for something ridiculous? Like, can you just level set with me? And he really helped bring me down to life. And that's part of what I mean by asking for help. And it's all worked out fine. Like, my lawyers got back to me. No one made me feel ashamed. Everything is good. Hopefully the deal goes through and I can have more practice with doing this type of work so that I don't need to feel so self-conscious about it, blah, blah, blah. But what I realized is that in situations that kind of trigger my insecurities around my value and money and my worth, I have to pay attention to the voice that's speaking to me, what I'm saying to myself, because sometimes nobody else is doing that. It's me. And I have to talk back to that voice. What if instead of saying they're going to be so disappointed when they see how small this deal is, what if I said, this is really exciting because everybody starts somewhere and it's money and it's work. And you did a really good job negotiating this contract. Like, I'm really impressed with your negotiation, actually. And I actually am really impressed. I don't have a manager. I did this by myself. I used the resources available to me. Like, I went in asking for more than I thought I'd get. And I'm really proud of myself. This is really good work. What if I went in with that kind of attitude instead of this like really insecure, small person? I have that power. I have that control. This example happened recently, but it's come up a lot over the last year. And I've been practicing getting better at this. And I hope that as the year continues and as I, go through this next decade, and you, if you're listening to this, like, pay attention when you're feeling insecure, pay attention to what your voice is saying and then challenge it. Because we, just as powerful as our negative voices can be, like, so can our positive voices, right? The mind is a powerful thing. And if you can convince yourself of something shitty about yourself, you can also convince yourself of something positive. And the positive thing is oftentimes the truer thing. Another lesson related to our inner voice is around fear. And that's, if your fear tells you that you have to do something or else, you should probably do the opposite. We all know the voice, right? We all know the voice. It's the one that says you have to take the 6 a.m. workout class before work every single day, because if you don't, you're going to lose control of your body. And we all know what happens to women when they lose control of their bodies. It's the voice that tells me I have to post this type of videos and this often, and you have to do X, Y, Z. Otherwise, you're going to fail. Your career dreams are never going to come true. I've become really familiar with that fear voice, as I think everyone has in one area of their life or many areas of their life. And I've learned that that's exactly the moment when I have to do something else. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not sometimes some truth. Like, there's some stuff that we do just have to do in life, right? We do have responsibilities, and there are some best practices, sure. But for me, I've learned that, like, I cannot listen to fear. Fear cannot be my motivating factor. Who was I just talking to this? I was just talking about this with somebody. Do you ever, like, I can't remember if I was talking about this with someone or if I heard it somewhere. This did not come from me, but someone was saying how, like, our motivation sources, if you are using fear as your motivation, it's going to dry up. Fear is not going to motivate you forever. I believe that when the fear voice kicks in, it means that I've gone too far in an outcome-driven direction. And remember, the goal is always to start enjoying the process more. And as soon as my fear is like, you have to do this or you're going to fail, I've become too attached to the outcome and not enough involved in the process. So that means I need to press the brakes real fucking hard. And maybe when I press the brakes and take a back seat and remind myself, you don't have to do anything. You are carving your own path. Success for you is different than success for others. Take a breath. You're right on time. You're not late. Sometimes it's like the fear voice will make you feel like, it'll give me that feeling that I'm like running up against the clock, only the clock is never going to stop and I'm chronically behind and I'm never going to catch up, but I have to stop. And when I stop, sometimes then I see, okay, you do want to make a video, and making videos is an important part of your creative life and an important way to help you accomplish your goals of becoming an author and continuing to build a wonderful community of people who like to hear what you have to say. Making videos helps you do that, but you don't have to do it in this specific rigid way to be successful. So let's take a step back and let's think about, what do you feel like making today? And from that place, then I can do the thing I need to do, which is make the video. See the nuance there? And I hope that in other areas of my life, as fear starts to kick in, which I'm sure it will, and it definitely has already in some ways, specifically regarding like where we're going to live and whether we want to have children and when we want to have children, like fear definitely is starting to, it's not as powerful because my fear is very focused on my career right now. But when fear tries to become powerful in other areas, I hope I can remember that. When fear tells me I have to do something, do the opposite. The next lesson is that grief explosions, as I call them, grief explosions are going to come and then they're going to go. And I trust that I can get through them. I think prior to this year, I really resisted a lot of the big kind of capital G deep pain in my life. And part of that resistance was that I didn't really think that I'd be able to recover. Like, I feared that they would send me into a deep depression. And I think last year when I started feeling very depressed again it felt like it was evidence of that. It felt like if I acknowledge these things, I'm going to fall apart. But what I've learned is that the resisting it is actually part of what makes it more intense. And instead, it's going to come when it's going to come. Grief will demand my attention and I should listen to it and I should let the grief explosions happen as they will. And then I'm going to be okay. And I think in accepting that and accepting that like this is part of my life and I can't really do anything about it, it's almost like I trust that every time I really sit with my pain and sort of believe that it's going to go away, never go away for good, but like I'm going to be okay tomorrow and I might be okay in 30 minutes and I might be okay in an hour. Like every time I sit with that and I trust that I will be able to come back to like an equilibrium, everything feels a little bit more bearable. And I have more trust that I'm going to be okay. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I have trust. I have learned to have trust that no matter how big the grief or the pain, I'm going to be okay. And I will get back to a place where I feel kind of stable, because the grief explosions can be incredibly destabilizing, as anybody who experiences them knows. And sometimes it's like, what the fuck? Am I ever going to feel normal again? But over time, and the more comfortable I become with it, I think the grief explosions last for less time. And that's not to say that there's not going to be one in the future that, I mean, this can get very dark very quickly, but that's not to say that like that's just it. And now I know how to deal with grief and it's always going to be good and easy. Who knows what's coming in my life? And even if nothing, even with the things that I've already experienced, there could be situations that make the grief come up again and last longer. But I feel like I have the tools to deal with it, and I trust that I'm going to be okay. And learning how to trust myself has been a weird, I don't even know how to break it down into how I've done that, but I do feel like I've gotten much more trusting of myself over this last year. And maybe it's just through experience. Like maybe it's just through practice and saying, hey, I don't trust that this is going to work out, but I'm going to try and trust it. Let's see. And then gaining the evidence to see that when I do sit with pain and when I let it kind of wash over me, that I will be okay. I don't know. Grief explosions are going to come and they're going to go. I've learned that at 31, and I hope I can keep that with me next year. The next tip, and this one's still so fucking hard for me to understand, and I don't know if I've completely mastered it. I definitely haven't completely mastered it, and I'm, trying to expose myself and to give myself more opportunities to grapple with this one. But it's that people are going to misunderstand you. That's the lesson. People are going to misunderstand you, so do I really want to spend my precious energy trying to make sure they understand me correctly if one of the inevitable truths of life is that they're going to misunderstand me? They're going to misunderstand me. Nobody's inside my brain. Some people will understand me more. And some people are like hell-bent on misunderstanding you. And I can make conscious choices to make sure that people in my inner circle and the people I spend time with are not hell-bent on misunderstanding me. But listen, I'm going to have to engage with people who want to misunderstand me or who do misunderstand me. And I don't want to spend my energy trying to convince them otherwise. I know who I am. I know what I meant. People who love me know who I am and what I meant. Sometimes I might get it wrong and I might need to clarify, right? And that's a case-by-case basis. But just broadly speaking, people are going to fucking misunderstand me. And I don't want that to be limiting. It's so easy for that fear of being misunderstood to make you not do any of the things you want to do. But I refuse to do that. Like I fucking refuse. Okay. People are going to misunderstand me. And I think that when we can believe that, it can be so freeing because it's no longer a thing I'm trying to prevent because it's just a thing that is. And, energy is a finite resource and we all have to decide where we're going to put ours. And I don't want to put my energy towards trying to make sure that I'm understood. I don't think that's the best use of it. I'd rather put my energy towards spending time and giving attention to the people who I love and towards making my work and making the next thing. And I don't want to be scared of being misunderstood. There are moments this past year when I have been so deeply scared of being misunderstood, so deeply scared of people misinterpreting me. But I know who I am. And if you know who you are and you have trust in who you are and what your intentions are, yes, you're still responsible for doing good and for trying to do the right thing and trying to articulate yourself clearly. But there's a limit to that. Like, you can't control how other people are going to perceive you. And I really hope for myself that I can stop trying. I've gotten a lot better at it, but I still know that I feel held back by this fear a little bit. But I'm getting better. And the more I embed myself in my process instead of the outcome, the less that fear has a chokehold on me. I can feel it loosening. But it's a lesson I've learned, and it's a lesson I'm still learning. And I hope you can join me in that one. People are going to misunderstand you, so stop trying to control it. So those are the lessons. Those are some of the lessons that I've learned this past year, 31 going into 32, or, maybe some of them I learned for the first time. Others I learned a long time ago, but have recommitted to. And I really feel like these are the lessons that have made me feel so confident and happy right now. And I'm so happy to get to share them with you. I'm curious if any of them resonated. If there's any of these lessons that you now are going to try committing to with me, please let me know. I always love hearing about your experiences. And yeah. Oh my God, I'm not 25. I was just going to say I'm 25. I'm not 25. It's 2025. 27 actually is the year in my head that I will live on in perpetuity for. But no, bitch, I'm 32. I'm 32. And what do I hope for myself this year? One final word. Alexandra, I hope that you just can continue to know how special you are and how valuable you are, and how your value has nothing to do with your achievements. Okay. You're valuable just because of you, and because of how you love others and how you care for others, and because of your special spark. You don't have to do anything differently to be valuable. And I hope that this next year you can continue to ease into that and to know that, because you are capable. When you know that, when you act from that place of true knowing and confidence, there's literally no stopping you. There's no stopping you. And that's proven by how everything you've set your mind to in your life, you have figured out how to achieve and how to get. And sometimes it hasn't looked like what you thought, but you have always found your way. And you're going to keep doing that. And the more you believe in yourself, and the more you focus on what matters, the juicier the outcomes are going to be. Because the outcome isn't focused on something fake and meaningless, but something kind of true and good. And yeah, you know what I'm trying to say, girlfriend. All right. I'll see you guys next week. I love you all so much. I'll see you all next week. You know where to find me on Instagram at AF Hayes. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube if you like to watch the video versions, or wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm so glad and grateful that you're here with me. All right. I'll talk to you soon.